This was the last area in the US that was mapped, and that is where we are going through. You are putting other people's lives at risk to save yourself because
Right.
maybe you weren't quite as prepared as you thought you were. I can't bail. Like, there is no possibility for me to bail. I can bail to a lower elevation, but I can't bail to like full on safety. I wound up spending about 30 hours in my tent just trying to wait out these like whiteout conditions.
Welcome back to the Peanut Butter and Mountains podcast. I think this is going to be episode number 115, actually, so pretty crazy. And today's guest is a seasoned thru-hiker, and last time I had him, he had 14,000 miles of trail experience, and now it has gone up by another 4,000 miles. So he's at 18,000 miles of trail experience under his boots. He runs a fantastic YouTube channel documenting nearly every single one of these epic adventures. And so if you're looking to learn from one of the most experienced hikers out there, you don't want to miss this conversation with Jupiter Hikes. What's up,
Cool,
Jupiter?
man. Thank you so much for having me back on. I enjoyed the
Yeah.
first one so much. It's been one of those podcasts where I'm like, oh, I'd like to go back to that one, you know? So I can't say that about every single podcast, and yeah.
Well, man, that is one of the best compliments I've received. And today we're actually going to be. This is the first standing podcast I've done. I've been doing them all
Wow.
sitting, so I'm trying for it standing today because I just get too, little
Dang, here I am
rambunctious
just
when I'm
like
sitting.
straight lounging myself. You're
Hey,
making
maybe
me
you'll
feel
be up
bad.
at. Yeah, but bro, here's the thing, man. You did a bunch of hikes this year, so I think you deserve to have a little sit down for a second.
Sure.
You did. Can you just what did you do this summer? It sounds like it was three big hikes, but not only that, you actually did them with your partner as well. So can you just kind of describe maybe just like a summary of those three, and then we'll kind of deep dive into each of them maybe.
Yeah, 2024. I feel like each year I try and do as much as I can, really. So this year, I don't know maybe the total mileage, but it's upwards of like 2,000 or so miles in very large chunks at a time. I hiked the 800 and like 30-mile Hayduke Trail, which runs across the southern Utah through the desert, through like ridiculous mazes of canyons. So that's 800 something miles. And then went off to Colorado, directly adjacent to Utah, hiked across Colorado on the Colorado Trail, another 500 miles. Drove up to Wyoming for the Wind River High Route, so add on like an extra 80 there. And then actually did the Teton Crest Trail too.
Oh,
So
that's
through
right.
through the Grand
Yes.
Tetons. That video comes out on Monday, so just a couple days from now.
Dude,
But
I'm stoked for that, man, because I'm actually looking into doing that with my girlfriend
it's
for her
awesome.
first through
You
hike.
will
Okay.
love it. I would recommend the Teton Crest Trail to absolutely everyone. Like, yeah, there's some permits involved, but honestly, if you look really closely at that map, you could avoid those permits if you really, really wanted to, because you
Oh,
get
okay.
you get close to the border of the national park and like I don't know BLM
Uh-huh.
land, public land in multiple locations. So even the logistics
Yes.
of it may seem a little complicated, but like for anyone that wants to do it but doesn't want to go through that, like you can figure it out.
I love that. So
Yeah.
I actually had a buddy that did it the same year, or well, did it this year. He said the same exact thing that you're saying right now. So maybe I'll have to look into that. I do know that they do walk up permits though too, right?
Yeah, that's what we did. I don't know if you can do them any other way. I don't know if it is online or
Oh,
not. But
yeah.
yeah, we just went the day before, right in the morning. We didn't even go like that early, and we got permits no problem for every campsite that
Sweet.
we wanted.
Yeah.
We were out there for just 2 nights. It's a 40-mile trail, so we basically had like 3 hiking days, two
Yeah.
nights camping, and it was wonderful. It's amazing. It's so cool to see like the backside of the Tetons
Yeah.
because all the infrastructure for the park is on the east side, and it honestly feels like I'm in the French Alps or something. The Tetons
Really?
are just like so massive and so craggy and like gnarly looking,
Right.
and the crest trail is just way up high, like right next to them, and it's It's wonderful. It's beautiful. You're gonna love it. Your girlfriend's gonna love it.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
So time well spent, and maybe like a good one for a first through hike. You would
Yeah,
say.
and it's only 40 miles. So
Right.
there's
Right.
water everywhere. It's not too long. It's unbelievably beautiful the whole way. Like you
Yep.
can't really get any better than that. So,
Nice, man. Okay,
yeah.
well that's so noted for that
Yeah.
one. You did a lot of hiking this year with your partner. Now, a
Yeah.
lot of your previous hiking has seemed to be solo, by yourself. So, how much different has that been with that dynamic of going with your partner versus going solo? And what did you kind of think of the whole experience, I guess, comparatively?
Yeah, it's definitely a shift in, I guess, mindset or something because, when you are just totally out on your own
Right.
doing whatever you want, I don't know, if you want to hike an extra 5, 10 miles, you go do that. If you want to, I don't know, stop and take a 2 hour break just looking at ants, you can do that, you know? But when you're hiking with a partner, you have to consider and they have to consider what is going to be like best for both of you. What is going to be the
Yep.
most fun for both of you. So that has been maybe a little bit, I don't know, I wouldn't say like difficult. It's just a shift in mindset of considering the group dynamic instead of just what do I want, and being a little bit less selfish about the trip and more of what is fun for everyone, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, this year hiked the Hayduke, half of the Colorado Trail together, and then the Teton Crest Trail together. And then last year we did a large section of the PCT. We did the Great
Okay.
Divide Trail, like 800 miles through the Canadian Rockies, and
Yeah.
the Superior Hiking Trail.
Wow.
So
Okay. You guys have shared a lot of miles then.
yeah, but I mean, before that, I have probably like 5, 6 years of just hiking purely alone all the
Totally.
time, every second. I don't even like really hiking with others that I meet out there. So it was definitely
Yep.
a massive change for me in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you guys have gotten, I mean, obviously you guys have gotten along or you guys have kind of figured it out for the most part. You guys have done quite a bit of miles together and continue to do that. So, because I agree with you, I love going solo for everything you just mentioned before. I can do basically whatever I want to do, you know?
Yeah,
And
well, when I first met you, you were running, what, 40 miles around Mount Hood. It's like
yes,
not every single person is going to want to do that?
no, it's a hard
So,
sell.
yeah.
It's a hard
So it's the
sell. Yeah.
same with like through hiking and backpacking. And maybe the most extreme example of this is if you're trying to bring a brand new friend out on like a camping trip. You
Yeah,
don't
for
want to
sure.
just dive straight into a 20-mile day where
For
like,
sure.
they're using all new gear or gear that they've borrowed from you and it's like things can go wrong very quickly. So maybe like
Yeah.
starting out smaller and like building up to that.
Yeah. I
But
agree, man.
yeah.
It's something special too, right? When you can kind of see it through their eyes as opposed to just yours. So when you're kind of bringing them along for the experience and you know that I know like when I brought my girlfriend along or I've brought even my brother or somebody else along on things and it's like they probably wouldn't have gone on this if I guess if we didn't have the idea together or if we didn't meet each other maybe type of thing. And
Yeah.
so it is kind of one of those cool things where it's you get to see them kind of light up with holy crap. And for me, it's kind of been where maybe I've been missing that for a few years because I've done all these miles. Did you ever get that? Did you kind of feel like on the trail, like kind of seeing it through your partner's eyes too?
Yeah, I think on the Hayduke Trail in particular, just I really like the rock climbing kind of scrambling bits,
Yeah, yeah,
and on the Hayduke there's absolutely no shortage of that in these like Utah
really.
canyons, because you are standing on this precipice with like 1,000 foot drop below you, and there's only like one stupid way down it, and a lot of times that involves a little bit of like climbing and scrambling. So I love that kind of stuff, but I feel like my partner Sprocket has maybe not done as much of that in the past. So it was really, really cool on that trail to both see her like become super comfortable with that stuff,
Hmm.
and just like, I don't know, I guess light up after having done it, successfully and comfortably
That's
and
right.
happily, you know.
That's right, man. Well,
So
that's great. So now with the Colorado Trail, because I was watching your documentary the other night on that one, you guys were going through that trail together. That was dang near right after the Hayduke Trail.
yeah, a
So
month later.
yeah, so you got right onto the CT, which beautiful, and I loved your narration of the CT and just of like through hiking in general on that documentary. It was so good, and kind of at some point in the trail, your partner ended up getting off, and then you kept going. What was that like when she got off and you kept going? Did you have to deal with any guilt? Did you have to wrestle with any of that, or what was that like?
Man, that was brutal.
I
Here we
bet.
had just walked like 800 miles across the desert on like the hardest trail in the United States. And then we go over to
Right.
Colorado full on expecting like, here's one of the most premier trails in the US. It's well maintained. There's water everywhere. Like, it's going to be so easy. That is what we're thinking, that this is going to be like the easiest thing we could possibly be doing right now,
Totally.
like the Camino de Santiago of the United States is where
Yeah.
our brain is at.
Yeah.
And we get out there and Sprocket gets Giardia. She must have picked it up in the first like few days of the trail, and
Uh-huh.
like we get close to the halfway point near Twin Lakes where you're entering like the collegiate mountains, and
Yeah.
like elevation's getting higher, the trail's getting a little harder, and she is sick. She has Giardia. Fortunately, it wasn't like a really nasty case of it, but it was bad enough where it just made like hiking impossible. She
Yeah.
would walk 10 minutes and then have to sit down for like 20 to 30 minutes
Wow.
or lay down, just lay down on the side of the trail. Anyway, so she was not having a good time. And man, yeah. So we made the decision. We slowed down at first, and we figured out like slowing down just wasn't going to be enough. We decided to get off trail, go to town, spend a night at lower elevation. I was thinking maybe this is elevation sickness, because we're at like 10,000, 12,000 feet. It wasn't elevation sickness. In hindsight, 100% know that now, but so we take a night off. Things aren't really better the next day. Decide, like, all right, we'll go to my friends. We'll spend a few days there. I think we wound up taking like 4 or 5 days off, and things just hadn't really improved. Um, Fortunately, Sprocket is like, I don't know, she didn't really seem to care at all
Right.
about like, I don't know, me continuing on without her.
That's awesome.
Like, I would have quit and we would have gone off and done something else. We could have like rafted a river or gone fishing or who knows, man.
Yeah.
But she didn't seem to care at all that I would continue on and do it by myself. So I continued on and did it by
Yeah.
myself. And I, trying to be mindful of her, I tried to do it as quick as possible, doing like 30 miles every single day, over 30 miles
Wow.
every single day, just to still see and experience the trail that, I've wanted to do for a very long time, but get it done as quickly as possible so I can get back to her and we can
Hmm.
go do something fun together. But she was sick, and it's like, well, she's just going to be resting in this time period, and we're not really going to be like doing
Right.
much fun things anyway. So, I mean, it wasn't ideal, but I feel like that's how through hikes go sometimes. Like, you're faced with a lot of unideal situations, and it's just what are you going to do when that happens? And you do the best you can. So that's what we did. We had plans after that to go do the Wind River High Route, to go do the Teton
Hmm.
Crest Trail. So it's like, all right, you rest up, and then in a couple of weeks or whatever, we'll be off on these other trails together and having fun again, and you'll no longer be sick. So,
Totally.
yeah.
Ah. Well, dude, I'm so glad she was supportive of that. That's awesome, and that's really the making of a really good partner right there. I think what what really struck me too in that story was how confident you guys were after the Hayduke Trail, because that is an extreme trail, right? So
Yeah.
so your expectations, it sounds like, for the CT is like, man, this is gonna be a walk in the park. I'm gonna hop, skip, and jump my way down the trail, and then, man, I swear it's like anything in life. Whenever you start to feel too overconfident, you just get humbled like that, man. Just punched in the face.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, I mean, we thought this is just going to be the easiest thing ever, and we're just going to have fun every second, and it turned into like the very opposite of that very quickly.
Totally. Because I would
Yeah,
imagine, man, and from the stories I've heard with the Hayduke and things, like, that had to be you had to be probably on your toes the whole trail. I mean, it was
every
probably
second.
quite
Yeah,
stressful.
I think like day two, we were starting a 35-mile stretch with no water,
Right.
and this is like climbing in and out of ridiculous canyons off trail, whereas like Colorado Trail, you're on a really nice, well
Right.
maintained, like the best maintained trail in the US.
Yeah.
I mean, outside of maybe like the PCT, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
Like the Coloradans very much so care and maintain and take care of and are stewards of the CT, you
Yeah.
know? So, yeah, we it's really nice. It's great, but we were definitely humbled.
Well, that's all. Yeah, that's a good lesson, man. Well, man, good stuff. Well, I'm glad you ended up completing it, and then so from there you went on and you did the Wind River High Route. Now, I am very interested in the Wind River High Route, as we were kind of talking about beforehand. I failed the Wind River High Route, the Skirka version, and I've been planning on going to do the Allen's version, which is the one you did, to get my redemption at least before, if
Yeah.
I ever try to consider the Skirka version again. But what ultimately inspired you to do the Wind River High Route? Because it is kind of one of those more, I would say, lesser well known. Well, high routes in general are lesser well known, but then also that route, I think, is too. Was it something that you saw in the CDT when you were going through there, or did you do the CDT?
No, I haven't done that one
Okay.
yet. Yeah,
Okay.
that's like the
Well,
final big the last big one that I feel
okay.
like I haven't done.
That's the boss. I say,
Yeah.
because from the most people that do the Wind River High Route, they're always like, "Oh yeah, I was on the CDT and I was looking at that route and I thought it would be really cool." Blah blah blah. So that's how they got into it. But yeah, I'm wondering what inspired you to do the Wind River High Route.
Yeah, I mean it was CDT hikers. It is a probably a decade for me of hearing CDT hikers talk about the winds as this like magical place that maybe in the past was a little bit of a lesser known secret, but at the same time, all of these people, like this is their favorite mountain range in the entire United States. Like if they could go backpacking anywhere, it's going to be the winds.
Hmm.
So just hearing year after year after year of all these people talking about the winds in this like whimsical manner,
Mm-hmm.
that this is the place. It's obviously always been something that I've wanted to check out for myself. So I guess like last year and this year, I've really tried to do like harder things.
Yeah.
The Great Divide Trail, the Hayduke Trail, the Grand Enchantment Trail. These kind of like off-trail routes with alternates and all these decision making, and things aren't like spoon-fed to you on these
Right.
kind of things. It's really you got to figure it out for yourself as you go. So the Wind River High Route really fit into that category of this is more difficult. This is beyond the scope of just a typical through hike, and something that I feel I'm ready for, with the experience that I currently have.
You're
So,
looking for a challenge in a
yeah, a
beautiful
little bit
place.
of, yeah, a very beautiful challenge, I guess.
That's a great way to describe the Wind River High Route. Yeah. So after watching your documentary, uh, man, I can relate to so many things that you were saying in there. one question I want to ask before we get into what actually kind of transpired on the Wind River High Route, but did you end up bringing your pad on that
My
hike?
pad. Oh, the foam one.
Yeah, did you bring a
Yeah, I
pad?
did actually have the foam pad, and I should have brought the stupid Neo Air. So for
I
the
was gonna,
Teton,
I was gonna see. Yeah,
so
yeah,
for the
yeah.
Teton Crest, I brought the Neo Air instead, just because
Okay.
I was out in the winds. This was like close to the middle of September, and
Yeah.
it was just starting to get too cold. I got slammed with a snowstorm, as you're alluding to, and I wound up spending about 30 hours in my tent just trying to wait out these like whiteout conditions
Bro.
of, you know, I cannot physically possibly be able to navigate off trail over
No.
high passes in whiteout conditions where it's actively snowing and there's like 30-mile-per-hour winds. So yes, I brought the little foam pad, the 1/8 inch foam
Bro,
pad.
that's what I was thinking.
That
I
is
was
only
watching the I was
it's
watching the
only
documentary and I'm thinking, I bet this guy brought that little ass pad. Just I bet he did.
Yeah, that was the one thing where, because I knew the weather was not going to be ideal. I knew it coming in. I wound up having to start this hike maybe a couple days later than I had originally planned. And if I was able to start just like 2 days earlier, it would have
Yeah.
just been bluebird skies, awesome weather, like perfection all the way through.
Yeah.
Instead, things change fast out there. So I started 2 days later, and that was enough to just have me dealing with thunderstorms, lightning, big rain, nasty looking clouds, and a snowstorm. So I knew this coming in that like weather is not going to be ideal. So I packed all this extra like layers. I packed a puffy, I packed gloves, I packed, I don't know, all this extra stuff to like prepare for this, and be comfortable in this. But the one thing that I didn't pack was the Neo Air, the inflatable. So that was definitely a mistake. But fortunately, like the extra layers worked out. My 20-degree
Yeah.
quilt was great, and I was still comfortable. It was just like I could have been like really comfortable.
Sure, man. Well,
Yeah,
especially doing 30 hours basically just hold up.
yeah.
Were, was there a time, especially in that 30 hours, that you kind of sat there and you started to get a little concerned with your situation? Or were
Oh
you
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
confident that you were,
Absolutely concerned. I mean, looking at the map, the location I was in
yeah.
was just about like the worst possible location imaginable. I was camped in near Alpine Lakes Pass for anyone that's been out there done it. And Alpine Lakes Pass on the east side, I'm like as far as you can get from a town in either direction. I'm as far as you can get from like an actual trail in either direction. And the only way back or to safety is either to wait the storm out or to go over some big passes. Go over Alpine Lakes Pass, go over, I don't know, the Knife Point Glacier and whatever pass that was, Indian Creek Pass, I'm not sure. Or go back the other direction I already had come and go over whatever pass that was. So I'm like in between all of these like big passes and it's
Wow.
just snowing, you know? So, yeah, I definitely had a moment of concern where it's like I can't bail. Like there is no possibility for me to bail. I can bail to a lower elevation, you know, but I can't bail to like full on safety. So,
Mm.
bailing to a lower elevation, that would have been like 100% the most right choice, but I knew like my layers and my insulation was good enough to like keep me warm and keep me safe where I was. My tent was sturdy enough to not blow over in the winds. So I made, I guess, a calculated decision to just try and wait it out. And I guess mostly I was thinking that, okay, all of the other storms that have hit me on this trail so far, they've slammed me hard. Thunder, lightning, hail, and just heavy rain for like an hour. And then they've passed. So I was thinking, okay, this storm is going to hit me hard and it's going to clear up for long enough for me to continue onwards. Because I guess the kicker here is I was only like 3 miles from, I guess, safety per se. 3 miles from being back on a legitimate trail, back at like lower elevations and like hiking happily, you know? So all I needed in my mind was I need like 1 hour, you know, of
Good
clear
point.
weather.
Good
I just
point.
need
Good
1 hour
point.
of clear weather.
Good
So
point.
I definitely didn't make like the greatest decision possible, but I also didn't make the worst decision possible.
Yeah, totally,
Yeah.
man. So, I mean, do you carry an InReach? Garmin InReach?
No, I don't. And this past year and this year, I've really considered it, buying one for myself. And I think my mom has even suggested that she would buy one for me because
Sure.
she does
Yeah.
not like hearing about these things. So thank you, mom. But no, I haven't taken her up on that, and I haven't gone after it myself yet.
Yeah.
On the Hayduke Trail, we did carry an SOS device, and on the Great Divide Trail, we did carry one as well. But that
Mm,
is Sprockets, and it's not an InReach. It's some like funny. I don't know where she got it, but it there's no messaging. It's just I'm in danger. Here's the giant red button, and you press it now.
yeah.
So fortunately, never had to use that. But I think my maybe I I haven't gotten one yet, while still like feverishly recommending them to others all the time. Is
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I come from that last little generation of hikers where the answer is you figure it out and you hike yourself out there yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm very much so of a very opposite mindset of like you shouldn't have to like suffer or make things worse or I don't know, the worst possible case scenario, die. You shouldn't have to do that just to like hike yourself out. Like, yeah, you should be making good decisions and you should be in positions where you don't ever have to use this thing. But, like, if things come down to the worst case scenario, you break an ankle or you break a foot or like you're in a very bad situation, like, you should have the option of using one of those and you should carry one of those. I
Mm,
think people, when I was first starting out, it was like, that was almost like frowned upon, ever needing to call for like help or
mm.
something. And I hope that mindset has like changed so drastically, you know?
Yeah, I agree, and I kind of I know what you're talking about too, because I do think it. People talk about this mentality with things like avalanche bags that you can wear when you're snowboarding or something, right? It kind of
Oh,
gives you
sure.
this illusion of more safety than you might have, and so you might go try to do riskier things because you have this angel of safety that you're kind of believing around you. And
Yeah.
so that is one mindset that I feel like some people with an inReach could get into where they're not experienced, but they're saying, well, I have this backup plan of hitting the button, but not, you know what I mean? Your backup plan, you were calculating, okay, lower elevation, there's passes here. Like you're actually calculating things on the map and things like that. Whereas if somebody that doesn't have that experience and then they just kind of have this crutch of this inReach, they might just hit that button and it's like, all right, so now other people have to come in and put their life at risk because
Yeah, so
of
that
something,
is
right?
ultimately the trouble and why it was frowned upon is like you are putting other people's lives at risk to save yourself because
Right.
maybe you weren't quite as prepared as you thought you were.
Right.
And I think the answer in a lot of ways is just like, people should be as educated as possible,
Yeah.
and I guess like in a lot of ways, sometimes that's why I do these YouTube videos to begin with is, I want to help and add to this like base of knowledge that is already out there so other people can make educated decisions themselves, you know?
Yes. Well,
Um, yeah.
and like I said, your Wind River High Route documentary, people should watch that because it is a real good testament to how fast the weather changes in the winds. I experienced that with my
Yeah.
Wind River High Route. I mean, that was the hardest hike I've ever done by far, and it wasn't just because of the weather. It was also the off trail nav and all of that type of stuff. I mean, it was just gnarly. It was just
Yeah.
gnarly. I don't know how else to say it. And so I guess that kind of leads me into: do you think you'll ever do that Skirka's version of it, or do you think you'll try to go back and finish that last few miles of the Allens, or where are you at
In
with the Wind River High Route?
in my mind, I did not finish the Adventure Allen route. Uh, I
Yeah,
literally physically I did not finish it, but I was so close that in my mind I do not care.
yeah,
Like I saw there was only one little pass that I did not in the end wind up hiking. There's a large portion after that of just being on a normal everyday trail. I think it's the Continental Divide Trail there. So in my mind, I really didn't miss anything.
yeah.
I got to see every single pass up until that just final last one. I think it's called Knapsack Cole, you
Mhm.
know? But so I do not care to maybe go do Allen's again, unless it's just purely for fun. But from the perspective of like to get redemption or something, like that's not really uh, something for me here.
Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, I would love to go back and do the Skirkas. It's really cool how they crisscross each other in so many places. If you had a GPS track for both of them or maps for both of them, you can see where like they're following the same path, they're following the same valley, they're going around the lake in the same areas in these little spots. But then Allen's, as I thought, was like a lake party where you go to this nice, beautiful little alpine lake, and you have some fun like with your little fishing rod and whatever for a while. Whereas Andrew Skrka is like goes up this ridiculous pass and is like
Yeah.
scrambling and climbing, So Skrka's definitely looks significantly harder.
Right.
And I mean, this is part of like, I was trying to make educated decisions, not just going for like the hardest possible thing, trying to stay within my limits and whatever, packing those extra clothes, knowing that like weather's not going to be so good, not, carrying a tent instead of a tarp as I normally would. And anyway, so yeah, I would love to come back and do Skirkas at some point. It looks different enough where I think from the perspective of seeing new things, like absolutely it would be new. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, just a yeah, different experience on the whole on the range again. So another same range, different experience. I
yeah,
mean, how many times can you say that about a certain mountain range? Because a lot of times there's just like regular trails or whatever through it, not so much these high routes.
yeah. And I guess a lot of mountain ranges, just it felt like in the winds that off-trail travel was just suited for it,
Mm-hmm.
like there
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't the navigation was all very simple. You could see the pass in front of you. You were going there. Like there was nothing really blocking your vision of, how do I get there? What do I go
Mm-hmm.
around? Everything was super simple in that regards as off-trail
Totally.
routes go. But yeah, I think a lot of other routes, like there would be things blocking your vision, or trees and shrubs and things that just wouldn't lend itself so much to it.
Yeah.
So I think in the winds, like the possibilities are endless, even beyond what
Interesting.
Dixon or Skirka have done and created.
Yeah.
So
Dude, love it. One of the things I saw in that documentary is what was that sun hoodie you were wearing? But it's not a sun hoodie. It's more of a. It's this newer material people are wearing.
oh
It
yeah,
look fluffier. What is that?
yeah, that's Alpha Direct. Alpha Direct is a fleece, I guess. Um, so your fleece jacket, I'm wearing one right now. This is like a Melanzana fleece.
Yeah.
I would never wear this for like a backpacking trip because it's far too heavy. But Alpha Direct it was originally used as an inner layer with a shell on top of it. So I forget the companies that maybe like Mountain Hardware, but it was a warm layer where they would then sandwich a shell on top of it because Alpha Direct itself is unbelievably breathable, which for the backpacker is great because when you're hiking, you want something that will keep you warm, but you don't want to just sweat it out and be too
Mm-hmm.
warm. So Alpha Direct was, in my mind, I think Senchi Designs, they were the first ones to like really popularize it. So even now there's like 30 different companies that'll make you an Alpha Direct fleece, and there's some that are ridiculously expensive for no reason. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
Senchi I think was the one that was first doing it. So it's a fleece, it's highly breathable, but it's warm enough to hike in it. So it's the most wonderful like fleece out there, I think. Yeah.
Now, would you bring that? Is that a shoulder season garment, or is that something you'd also wear in the summer?
Both. Yeah, I think it's really great for the summer. And then in the colder like shoulder seasons, fall, autumn, you would bring it along with a puffy jacket. You know, it is so lightweight. I think my Alpha Direct fleece is like 4 ounces. Four
Okay.
ounces is nothing. That is
Right.
so light. It's unbelievable. Your water filter weighs more than that. Um,
Right.
so yeah, in the shoulder season, you would just bring it along with a puffy, you know? And it's great then for hiking in the mornings when it's cold, but when you're at camp or when you're chilling and taking a break, you put on your puffy. In
Hmm.
the summers, I think it's good enough on its own.
Really? Oh
Yeah, and
no.
it comes in like three different like weights or warmth levels, maybe you could think of,
Yeah.
60, 90, and 120. I think they even make
Okay.
a even higher rated one, like 240,
Okay.
but 60 would be the coldest,
Okay.
90 is pretty average, 120 would be the warmest. So
What
I
are
think
you rocking for
I
that
use
then?
a 60 typically just because I like the lightest possible option, and then I figure out how to make that work with my kit typically.
Yeah.
But I think
Cool.
the 90, Alpha 90, is probably what's best for the vast majority of people and what's going to be the most versatile.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Man, that's gonna be my next. It's gonna
Yeah,
be my
I
next
think I just bought
purchase.
another one.
I
That's in
think.
the 90. Yeah, I forget, man. Honestly.
He's just buying Alpha Direct everywhere. I can't keep track.
Well, it is so good that I decided
Interesting.
I just wanted to try all the different weights. So I've
Huh.
tried the 60, I've tried the 120, and now I just want to try that middle of the ground 90.
Yeah. What
So
in and what company is that you're getting it from? Or do you have
yeah,
any
there's a
recommendations?
few. There's a few. They're all super cool. Senchi Designs, Senchi Sechi. Senchi was, I believe, the
Okay.
first to popularize it. Farpoint they're another company that makes them, and they're super cool. They're super friendly. I've talked to them. So Farpoint is another one. I know there's like Vado Apparel. There's like Sam Bob. He makes them, or they make them. I don't know. There's a lot of them. This like
Okay.
fabric has really taken the layering game by storm, let's say, because it's so lightweight. It's so versatile. Yeah. So
Ah, okay. Well, that's
yeah.
my next purchase because I was looking at that and I've seen that around on some different hikers before, and then obviously when you were wearing it, I was like, huh, there must be something to this, you know. So,
Yeah, I think
um,
there's different like if you're looking for a fleece that's going to be like durable, that'll last you like 100 years, there's probably other choices out there.
mhm,
But I've honestly been really surprised with excuse me, the durability of this one as well. Like it's not gonna last me maybe 10 years of bushwhacking, but
mhm.
like I
Yeah.
took this one on a bunch of hikes last year. I took this on some really ridiculous hikes this year, and overall it still looks basically the same as when I got it. So,
Wild.
yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, man. That's good to know. Tenkara fishing. How did you get into Tenkara fishing?
Sure, that's a great question because I actually started doing it in 2018.
Wow.
I
Okay.
Okay, I was working this metal fabrication job in Florida.
Hmm.
We were building these like flood protection systems that we'd send to like coastal cities in the US to protect from floods, protect the businesses. Anyway, the we would work in these little teams of two to build these things. And the guy I was working with, his like passion in life, the thing he wanted to do more than anything all the time, everywhere he went, every day, was fishing. I knew nothing about fishing, and I figured, well, I'm working with this guy every day for like 8 to 10 hours. I need to get into fishing, so I have something to talk about with this guy. So I started fishing just normal like spinning reel, typical like living in Florida, so coastal saltwater. But the backpacker in me was like, okay, how can I bring this backpacking? And you can buy like tiny little spinning reel kits and stuff. But I came across Tenkara. Tenkara is uh, it's fly fishing technically, but it was developed in the mountains of Japan for fishing small streams while hiking and backpacking. It was originally made for like commercial fishermen up in these small streams to catch trout to then sell to their village and whatever. But it's unbelievably like minimalist, and there's no reel. It's just a rod that collapses down to like 20 inches. It weighs like 3 ounces, and it's the perfect thing for backpacking
Yeah.
because it collapses so small. You can just have it stashed in your backpack. It's not going to get caught on anything. It weighs 3 ounces, so it's like weightless.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not technically, but it
Mm-hmm.
might as well be. It's pretty lightweight for a full fishing kit. And
Yeah.
it's great for using in mountain streams, for using in alpine lakes, and for all these places where traditional fishermen, they're not going to take the time to come up to these areas. So these
Sure.
places are like unfished, and
Good
it's
point.
perfect for the Tenkara. I don't know if I'm explaining it well enough, but collapses down to 20 inches, but it telescopes out to 12 feet. So you have a
People are
lot
probably
of
listening like,
reach.
what?
Yeah, 12 feet. So you have a lot of reach on like lakes and anyway, so that's something I got into
And
in
there's no
2018.
reel with it, correct?
No reel.
There's
So
no.
it's fixed line fly fishing. So you have a 12-foot rod and a 12-foot line. You could put a
Mm-hmm.
20-foot line on it. It doesn't matter. If you're in a really tight little narrow bushy stream, you could put a 5-foot line on it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so effectively you'll have like, I don't know, 20 feet of reach, 30 feet of reach, which is more than enough for
Mm-hmm.
like fishing and backpacking. So
So, so 2018 you got into it. And it seemed like was this the year that you started to really bring it into the mountains, or were you doing it between there and then?
I was just using it originally fishing in Florida for like smallmouth bass and stuff.
Yeah.
Just because I thought it was cool, and I'm like, all right, someday I'm gonna bring this backpacking. And then in 2020, I hiked the Florida Trail before the world shut down for a little while. And I carried it on the Florida Trail that year, and I fished with it a little bit, but I wasn't like, I don't know. I guess I wasn't as, I was more interested in just like, I'm hiking,
Sure.
not like I want
Yeah.
to stop and like take breaks and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so this past year and this year, I got a lot more into it and actually started bringing it places, just on day hikes, bringing it. If there's going to be an alpine lake or a river or something, I'll bring it. You can get this
Hmm.
fishing rod set up in like 3 minutes and be fishing. So I'd bring it on day hikes all the time, and I brought it on the Colorado Trail, which was awesome. Lots of good fishing on the Colorado Trail. I brought it on the Wind River High Route, and I brought it on the Teton Crest Trail.
Hmm.
So I had so much fun using it on those hikes.
Hmm.
And if you do the Teton Crest, let me know, and I'll send you some spots that definitely have some
Yes.
fish.
That would be awesome, man. That would be
Yeah.
awesome. That would be great because you are inspiring me. Like I was talking to Jupiter obviously before we started recording, and I said, "Man, I have a Tenkara rod. Totally thought I was going to use it, but I've literally it's just been in my closet, and I just haven't brought it out to even use." When you're doing it, you see a fish or whatever, or you're throwing it out to the lake, and then you hook the fish. Well, how are you getting the fish back to the shore?
Yeah, it's super intuitive. I don't even need to describe it because once you do it, you'll immediately know what to do. I
Okay.
mean, because there is no reel to reel the fish in, and but your rod and your line are only like 10 to 12 feet long, you
Yeah.
just lift the rod straight up, and then that fish in that line is naturally going to come towards you. So you
Okay.
just reach out, grab your line, unhook the fish, and release them back to where they
Huh.
came.
No kidding,
So
man.
it's really, really intuitive. Yeah.
Ah. Okay, well, you're inspiring me to do that. Thank you for that. I'm gonna go dig my rod up right after we get off of this
Sure.
episode. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that, brother. So I guess the last subject I kind of wanted to touch on was your creative workflow when you're on trail and then you're editing. And like I said before, man, I think you have some of the best videos on YouTube of telling a story and also your cinematic shots, your compositions, the camera you're using, the colors and the edits. Just everything looks really, really pristine in there. And so it got me thinking, because obviously I film my stuff too. Are you like, before you go and do a hike, are you I guess you can't really do that if it's a through hike. When you are hiking, are you thinking about shots, or do they just come to you? Like you see something and then you're like, that's sick, I'm gonna get that. And then try to compose it the best way? Or what's your workflow when you're on the trail?
I appreciate it. I wish my videos could be like 100 times better than they currently are, though. And when I'm out there, I'm always like filming something, but it's hard when you're like tired and you're
100%.
hungry and now you have to like stop and film something. So you really gotta like love doing it and enjoy it. And
100%.
um, so I wish my videos could be way better. And I actually on my phone have like a giant list of things to remind myself, like you need to be like, think about this while you're like out filming these things.
Hmm.
Remind myself how to do this way that I will be happy with later when I'm editing it.
Sure.
So, I mean, a big part of that with the individual shots is don't just film stuff at random. Well, do that, yeah. But when you go to film something, ask yourself, how can this be the best shot that it could be? How can I
Totally.
make this as beautiful as possible? How can I compose this in the right way? So instead of having like 10 clips that you're either going to hate later and not even want to include, you'll just have one clip that's really, really good. Now, one of the other tips is for myself, just to remind myself when I'm hiking, is to film as much B-roll and as much things as humanly possible. Ideally, I would make every single one of those clips as beautiful as possible, but that's not always the case. But it just gives flexibility later on when you're actually putting the video together. That if three of these clips suck, maybe two of them or one of them is not going to suck, but it's going to still tell the story of that moment. So those are my, I guess, like two big tips for actually filming the things, or the two most important ones I find that I don't always do myself and need to remind myself to do. But the other one is, yeah, when I'm out there, I'm definitely thinking of the future product and okay, like what's the story here? What's
Yeah.
happening? Why is this interesting to anyone? And if it's not, then maybe I just don't film it or include it at all. But a lot of times I kick myself later for not doing that because sometimes little things turn into big things, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So, yeah, I'm absolutely thinking about the end product as I'm going out there. And I'm not going to hike some 15-mile stretch without filming something because later on in the video, then there's just going to be this black hole of nothing, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Now,
Yeah.
can you still see me? My freaking TV went
Yeah,
off.
I can still see you.
Okay,
Mhm.
good. I can't see you, but I was just like, oh, I'm like kind of uncomfortable. I wanna sit down. So let me just see if I this bro. This is what catches me, man. It's like either
45
I sit
minutes of
down.
the standing recording, and you're like, I can't handle this anymore.
I'm done. I'm freaking
My
done,
legs are toast.
dude. I'm like, I've
Chad
been
did
standing
leg
all.
day yesterday, and his knees are wobbling. He can't handle it anymore.
Yeah, dude. I'm like in the 15th round of a boxing match right now or something like that. My knees are wobbling. Whatever. I'll try to figure it out or whatever. But let's see. I see. Oh no, there he is. He's on this. Yeah, for some reason. Okay, I still see you here, but my camera's here. So when I talk to you here, so this is gonna be kind of weird. I'll probably be looking over here when I'm actually looking at you. I'll try to get this
That's all
while I'm
right.
going. But so the other thing I wanted to ask too with that was, it seems like your storytelling is also just ramped up with narrations, doing voiceovers, incorporating that with B-roll and things that are actually happening on trail. So is that an intentional thing, or like are you really starting to be cognizant of storytelling, and or where did that come from, I guess?
It's very much an intentional thing, and I think in some way it's wanting to not just produce a vlog,
Yes.
another typical vlog. Like, oh, cool, someone else is on
Day
the
1 through 3.
yeah, someone else on
Yeah.
the Appalachian Trail filming a vlog of every day of
Yeah,
their
yeah.
hike, because
Yeah.
I personally don't watch those. So I
Yes.
wanted to do
Same.
something a little bit different, and I think the biggest part of this is that I wanted to provide more information. I wanted to provide more information about the weather, about the gear, about the trail itself, and about what someone else who may want to do it can expect, or someone who's watching that has no interest in doing it might just add extra value and entertainment to the video of knowing these things that maybe I can't show through video. Because
Mm-hmm.
the typical advice is, it's a video, you should show it, not say it. But sometimes that's a little bit difficult, so
Yeah.
narration definitely helps me with that. But it's me trying to provide more information. That's really what it comes down to, you know.
Context, like background context, because that's the one thing I really liked how you were. I don't know if it was the CT or if it was the Wind River High, or it might have been both that I was watching, but on both of them you were like giving background on the trail, and like I
Yeah,
know
or
for sure
providing extra on the Hayduke,
yeah,
a lot of like extra history on the area,
dude,
to
yes, I
be
love
able
that.
to quantify how remote something is by being able to tell the viewer that like this was the last area in the U.S. that was mapped. It's the last area that was put
Oh
on a
yeah,
map, and that is where we are going through. Like it's hard to
dude.
show that through video, but you can say that, and I
Huh.
think it adds something interesting, you know?
Does, bro. It
Yeah.
does. Totally does. No, like I said, man, your storytelling has really increased. I mean, not that I was ever bad or anything before, but I'm just saying that like when I'm watching these videos now, you're really like glued into, and for me, retention wise is really good. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just
Well, I'm always
it,
trying to improve. It's always funny to me when I get like a comment of you should do this. And it's like, man, I've been thinking about that, and I'm gonna do that on that next trail. It's just unfortunately I can't go back in time and redo that. But typically like, I'm thinking of how I need to improve probably before someone tells me that that's the way that I need to improve.
for sure with
You know,
with all of their zero videos that they've ever created too or something.
Well,
It's like
it's very valid. And originally, like that is, my videos were out of focus. The audio was terrible. Like,
well,
and it took someone telling me physically that, like, dude, you need to fix this, for me to
dude.
actually realize, like, okay, I think I need to fix this. So nowadays, I'm a little bit more tuned into like, okay, this is bad, that's bad, this is bad, and I'm very
Sure.
critical of my own things. So, I typically am trying to be on top of it, and I'm always trying to be improving or trying something new.
Man,
So, yeah.
my two biggest issues. So going from shooting on like I don't know if you're documenting on an iPhone or GoPro or an Insta360 to an actual camera, which is what are you using for a camera?
Uh, Either a Sony ZV-1, which is a little tiny handheld thing, or a Sony ZV-E10, which is more of a DSLR. It's bigger with detachable lens and stuff like that.
Lenses, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, here's my two biggest things. Because it is a game changer, obviously, in quality when you go from an iPhone to that,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah.
But there's a
But
learning curve.
yeah,
There's a learning curve when you go out on trail and you're bringing those on trail as opposed to if you're doing some studio filming or something. And my two biggest things were, and still are, like you're saying, out of focus, number one. Okay, it would be three. Out of focus shots. Two would be having the correct f stop on it, right?
uh,
So whether it's I, see what I think you did really good with these documentaries is you must have had a like a higher f stop on it, right? Like an F20 or Or I don't know. That's what
I
it
use
looked like.
auto.
Oh, okay.
The big thing for me is shaky video. I don't
Ah,
like looking
yeah.
at it, and I know a lot of other people don't like looking at it. And that's hard to do with a big DSLR when you don't
That
have a
isn't
gimbal.
stabilized. Yeah,
So
yeah,
you have
yeah.
to be a little bit more creative. But yeah.
I agree. That's another one. The other one for me, man, and you never really know about this until you get to you start editing dust spots.
Oh
I'll
yeah.
have
It's
I'll have dust
yeah.
spot. Oh, I'll be like, that ruined that shot, dude. I'm like,
Well, it could
how?
be better, but I feel like the dust spot may not ruin it unless it's huge. But yeah, there it is kind of funny. I think there was a dust spot that I noticed for the Wind River High Route video that I then
Mhm.
saw again on the Teton Crest, and I'm like, what? Am I not cleaning the lens in between like 2 weeks or?
I know, bro. That's how
Yeah,
I feel too. But even if you
yeah,
do, it's like it's just so it's just. But so kudos to you, man, using a camera like that and editing. I just like I said, I think people that
yeah.
are
It's
listening
it's big and it's
should
heavy,
listen.
and
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
but it
Big,
makes
heavy, got batteries, but it makes it so much better.
on a
I agree.
trip that is so beautiful, like the Hayduke or the Colorado or the Wind River, like sometimes you gotta bring it.
Yeah.
Whereas other trips, like maybe it's not quite as visually focused, let's say,
Yes.
right? Some
Yeah.
trips are more beautiful than others,
Yeah.
and
That's
the
for
big
sure.
camera is worth it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Ah, great stuff, man. Well, I would love to close out with the question I had asked you before our podcast started. I had pulled my Instagram audience for some questions, and I think this was like my number one, the best question I think I got. That would be very thought provoking for a guy like Jupiter, who is very thought provoking in the first place. So this is the one I pulled out. So this comes from Jason Hardrath, who's a absolute badass over in the Pacific Northwest. He asks, "What has made the last 1,000 miles different than your first 1,000 miles of hiking?"
Yeah, it's a really hard question. It's a great question. I can see why you chose it. It's definitely thought-provoking. The first thing that kind of comes to mind is that um, in the beginning, I was very, very, very focused on getting very good at one specific way of backpacking. And in many ways, I still am. I'm still trying to be the best that I can at that one specific way. But now, however many thousands of miles later, I'm also trying to become good at other styles of backpacking. And the two main things I'm speaking of here is very fast and very ultralight versus maybe going out and hiking with friends. Because just because you're a master at fast packing and super ultralight backpacking and long distance through hiking, you could go out with a group of friends and you could be the least prepared, the least fun, the least you could be ruining that trip because you chose to hike this way that you are really good at, but it's just not the way of that other trip.
Mm-hmm.
So in more recent years, I feel like I still want to continue fast packing. That's what I love very much. Doing those 30, those 40-mile days, like back to back to back to back.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I first met you, I was on
Oh
like
yeah.
3 or 4 weeks of averaging over 40 miles every day. 3 or 4 weeks of 40s. So
Right.
I love that, and I love those super ultralight. How can I carry less than 7 pounds, 6 pounds on a long distance through hike, but that's just not conducive to every trip. That's not always conducive to hiking with a partner or going out with some friends or car camping, so you can be very good at one of these styles. Maybe that's car camping for some people. They know all the cutlery to bring, they have that tablecloth, and they got those, all the fun little games for car camping and stuff. But once you put them in a backpacking setting, even though they're so similar and use a lot of the same gear, you know, they may not be very good at that. And same could be said for bike packing versus backpacking. No
Totally.
matter how similar they are, they're different styles and take different
Mm-hmm.
techniques and skills. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's something I've definitely tried to focus on more lately. And that's part of why I have been using the Tenkara rod more recently
I was gonna
is,
ask about that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, because it's maybe a way to slow myself down and force myself
Totally.
to take some breaks because here's some beautiful alpine lake and I can catch some cool fish that I've never seen before that's got really pretty colors and then I can return
Yeah.
it back to its home and it's all
Yeah.
good, or carrying a larger camera and filming these things. You could be the best backpacker in the world, but maybe you're not going to be the best filmmaker while
Totally.
backpacking. So trying to make my films while hiking more interesting. So that's definitely the biggest change. Originally, I was focused on getting good at that one thing. How ultralight can I be? How fast can I go? And now I haven't found that limit. I could go lighter. I could go faster. Like there's people way faster setting FKTs left and right on all these crazy trails. But, I feel like in that time I've also forgone like the basics of backpacking with other people and just going out backpacking for the fun of backpacking instead of purely having some time goal or some mileage goal or the goal of just testing your own limits you know
Mm-hmm.
so throwing those things away and finding fun in other things too.
Yeah.
So that's probably been the biggest change of recent, and it's not like
Sure.
letting go of my past self. Like that's still here, I still want that and I still do that,
Yeah.
but it's not like every second of my ever thought you know
Yeah. You're just trying to be a little more multi-dimensional and incorporating different types of styles in. And the cool thing is that the main thing that you were talking about at your first 1,000 miles still parallels that stuff,
Yeah,
but
totally.
it's just in a different styles, different ways. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So just finding new ways to have fun doing the thing that I've been doing now for over a decade, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Lovely. Jupiter, you're the man. Where can people find you? Where do you want to lead them to?
Yeah, people can find me on YouTube at Jupiter Hikes if they search that. Jupiter like the planet, hikes like hiking. Um, Instagram, Jupiter Hikes, or if you use Facebook, Jupiter Hikes.
Yeah.
I don't know, use Facebook as much, so Instagram or YouTube is definitely
Yes.
the place. So
Definitely
there,
recommend checking out
yeah.
his YouTube channel, guys,
Oh, or I
especially.
have I have a website and I post all sorts of like guides. So all these trails that I'm doing, you can find like guides that I've written on how
Mm,
you can better hike that trail yourself, and
mm,
find more information. And what are the questions that I wish I knew before doing it? That's what I try and answer. So
yeah.
some guides out there answer a lot of weird basic questions. I try and answer the stuff that
Yes.
hopefully you want to know because you're not finding it elsewhere.
That's so good, man. That's
Yeah.
exactly how I try to do my YouTube videos as well. And I remember we actually on our last podcast we talked about your blog, and I said because I was looking at my old notes, it's like you have minute details of things on these different trails. I'm telling you guys, this is some of the most in-depth blogs that you can read about a trail. So if you want
And
to be
then
as prepared as possible, check it out.
yeah, and then some of them aren't so in depth because you just don't need to know that much. But
Yeah.
hopefully I answer the questions that you really do need,
Looking.
and
Yes.
sometimes those aren't answered elsewhere. But yeah,
Yeah.
literally right now for the past like few days or whatever, I've been writing a giant blog about the Hayduke Trail and,
Mm.
with all sorts of stats from my hike, with all sorts of information about, I don't know, the difficulty, the scrambling, the hard sections, the permits, the water availability. As I
Yeah.
hiked that trail, I took note on every single water source that we came across, which sounds excessive, and it is, but it's a desert through hike, and the most previous up to date water source was 6 years ago. So, like, I felt like this is a duty that I need to do.
Yes.
So I took
Absolutely.
notes on all of them. Anyway, so right now I've been working on a big guide for the Hayduke Trail, and it's
Man, you
not going to
never
make
know.
it.
That could
Yeah,
save someone's life right there, especially
that's what
waters.
I
You know
thought,
what I'm
or
saying?
it could just it's still going to be the most difficult trail in the U.S., but like it's going to be a little bit safer and hopefully a little
Yeah.
bit more comfortable and just add to the base of knowledge that exists in the world.
Yeah.